go, I shall go to see what the other these. Why?
28 Minutes or Less podcast with S. Foster.
Battles to win.
28 minutes. 28 minutes. S. Foster. S. Foster.
What's good, people? It's your boy S. Foster back for another episode of 28 Minutes or Less. And this is episode 62 of the podcast. And I'm not solo today. I actually have a guest, very special guest. I have had the opportunity to work with this person one time before. That was on the Views Anonymous podcast with my guy, Scoots Bronson. Shout out to him. So the person I have today, I have a VJ from Murder Vee Wrote, you know what I'm saying, which is a very clever name. Love the artwork for that. Also, is from the podcast All Docked Up. She's a co-host on there, and also a part of Chopping It Up with Q's podcast. So a very busy woman here. So first and foremost, how you doing today, V?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. As I said before, it's been a very Monday. So
listen, I completely understand. It's been one of those days for me as well. But you know what I'm saying, I'm pushing through it. You know what I'm saying? I always got to push through it. Ain't nothing gonna hold me down. So you always got to keep moving. So like I mentioned, you're a very, very busy woman. We actually been planning this podcast for a while.
Right, I was trying to get you on my show, and because we share a love of, like, I guess, the morbid and interesting in that regard. And well, you reached out and were like, I don't know about doing your show. Oh, you do mine instead.
This is so true. Like I've been listening to your podcast, and I'm like, yo, like I do not know how I'm gonna fit in here. Like it's perfectly scripted. Like, and I'm like, yo, like I just get on the pod and I just pod, yo. Like I don't know how I'm gonna get in here. So I was like, look, it might be a better fit if you come over here and we could just chop it up. Especially, yeah, like we did on that Tina episode of Viewers Anonymous. You know what I'm saying? Like we had a whole panel that day, but you know, this was Scoots thought it would be a great idea. He was like, yo, he said, I think if y'all link up, he'd be like, I believe it'll be a really good pod because y'all have a lot of similar interests. So this is where I want to start, right? So I heard something I wasn't able to elaborate on it. Like you just kind of brushed over it like it wasn't nothing. I'm like, yo, you can't just say this and not, you know what I'm saying, elaborate on this. So you are a person that attended UT. For the people that don't know what UT is, that's the University of Texas. In Austin. All right. At the same time, you know what I'm saying, where Vince Young was there, Matt Brown was there, national champions, you know what I'm saying, beat the USC, who everybody had as the favorite of that game. But you was at that school during this time. And before we get there, how did you ended up going to UT in the first place?
Well, for those of you that aren't from Texas, so Texas has a top 10% rule. So basically, if you are in the top 10% of your graduating class, then you can essentially apply to any of the public schools in Texas, and you get automatic acceptance. So I really kind of had my choice of schools to go to. I graduated valedictorian of my class in 2003. So they were kind of at the top of the list. They have a very good science department. It's a very good research university. And that is why I wanted to go there, because originally I wanted to be a pediatrician. So I was a biochem major.
Oh.
So they had a really good department. And I actually had skipped a grade when we moved to Texas originally. I'm an Army brat. And so when we moved, I skipped a grade. And so I graduated when I was 17. And so I wasn't able to really sign any legal documents or do any of the kind of stuff that you need to do to be a functioning adult at college. So it made sense to go somewhere that was a little bit away, but not super far away. Because if I had my choice, I would have been at Georgetown. But my mom was like, oh, the fuck no, that's not gonna. It was too far. Like, you know, if something happens, how is somebody supposed to get to me from there. And Austin is about 4 hours from where we originally are from. So not a bad drive and still close enough where people could get to me if they needed to, if I needed my mom to sign something.
Yeah. Oh, well, look, it was different for me. I went to school like 7.5 hours away from where I was from. Yeah, I went to Fairmont State University, which is in West Virginia. So yeah. I get, that's the reaction that I get from people. Like everybody, it's not as bad as it sounds. I'm telling you, like
are you
we
sure?
were, yes, I like, yo, dead ass. Like we was only 20 minutes away from Morgantown, which is where the University of West Virginia is.
Yeah.
Yo, they know how to party. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm at liberty to say. But like the wild part is there was a lot of there was a couple of people from South Carolina, but mostly it was Florida and Maryland dudes. Like that was like the whole football roster was like Florida dudes and Maryland dudes. So we was good. You know what I'm saying? We kind of took over the school. So, but that's crazy. Valedictorian, yo, I was nowhere near there. If I was, I graduated around the bottom of my class. So,
well,
but I was able
matter.
to.
Like like it matters to some degree, but it doesn't really. Like,
yeah, because it's like, okay, if you tell somebody now, and it's just like, okay, like, I mean, it depends on where you are and what you think. Because a lot of people they look and view education differently. Like if I view education the way I view it now, back then, oh, it would have been I never would have went to Fairmont State University. That wouldn't even been in the question. So we got how you got down at UT. So now, like, I need to know what this atmosphere was like. So, like, I mean, I know the game was at the Rose Bowl. It was in Pasadena, but like when they got back, or even what the campus was like, was you on campus when the game happened?
So that is during break for us normally. So January. So we're not quite back at school. So was in Austin, but not back in classes. But it was just insane because everybody's like huddled around televisions watching, because I'm an off-campus apartment, so it wasn't far. And so everyone's huddled around televisions, you're like looking. And then once we realized we had won, like everybody's like, we got to go to campus. We got to go to campus. So we just, people are in the parking lot because, the student apartments, everyone there goes to the school because that's, you're just all living on campus. So it's just an insane amount of crazed white people who are drunk at this point because we're all drunk. Football game. So a bunch of crazed, drunk college students like, yeah, we got to go to campus. And obviously walking DWIs, hopping into their cars, carpooling. Everybody's going to campus, parking illegally. People are like diving into the fountain, like just insanity. It was a good time. Nobody like turned over any cars or anything like some of these weird happiness riots I've seen, but we had a good time. We partied. 6th Street was packed that night. People were just in a good goddamn mood.
Man, I can't imagine, man. Like, cause see, I'm a Florida State fan, and like they won the championship back in it was the 2013 season, but it was January of 2014, and it was just like I was strongly considering like, yo, I'm about to just drive down to Tallahassee real quick. I'll be back. I'll be back in a little while.
Just turn up, go crazy, and just like go home.
Look, if I didn't have no kids, I would have been there. You hear me? Like I would have been on that campus. I didn't go here, nothing. I'm just a fan.
It's an experience.
No,
they don't. National championship. The children needed to experience that.
This is true, but at the they didn't even care nothing about the game. Like they just looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm jumping around the living room, and they're like, "What the hell is wrong with my dad?" Like just jumping around the living room like he crazy. And then it was one of those games where it was the same situation. It was a game-winning touchdown at the end to win the game. So like, yeah, that was just wild. Like I just couldn't imagine. Like when you said that, I'm like, yo, like you was really like on campus when that happened. So what was it like when they got back? Like when the football players got there? Like was it like a long continuous party?
A lot of it was. I mean, you'd be surprised how quickly things go back to normal. But yeah, right up until the point that school started back and people were, expected to go to class.
This is true.
Continuous party. Yeah. For those few days before everybody had to kind of come back to school, but it's just insane, right? And then you could say, my school are national championship, Texas Longhorns. Enrollment went up the next year quite a bit to the point that they were having to turn people away. It became, I think people don't talk about how much like an athletic department really kind of generates not only revenue for the school, but it generates that hype and that buzz, and the amount of people that will apply somewhere because that type of like sports atmosphere is important to them is really insane. But it's really kind of a part of the college, like the college experience, right? You want to get the authentic experience. You want to tailgate. You want to go to one of those schools that's like steeped in tradition. And I think the football plays a big part in that. So they saw a huge spike in admissions the year after.
Which is it's not surprising. I mean, because I'm pretty sure like even the recruiting, I mean, obviously after you win a championship, guys gonna want to come into the atmosphere to see if they can rekindle that, even though Vince left after that year. So
right.
It wasn't the same team. But if I'm not mistaken, Colt McCoy came in right after that, right?
Right. So then I think the next year we were again in a position where we were playing for national championship, and that's the year Colt got hurt. Or the year after maybe. But Colt got hurt his shoulder, I think, and then he didn't play. So we ended up losing that national championship because he didn't play, which I mean, and then there was a whole bunch of buzz back and forth about whether he should have just sucked it up and played and blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of like, well, you're asking this kid to possibly forego an NFL career if this is, a serious injury or something that requires surgery. It's going to lower his draft stock. So, I mean, in some ways you understood why he didn't play.
Yeah. I don't blame him. And I would like to say, you know what I'm saying? Don't tell nobody, you know what I'm saying? Texas was always like my secondary school. Like I used to have like, look, I had a Texas shirt before they won the national championship. I just want people to know that. I had it before the national championship. And I was rooting for them like crazy because I hated USC. USC got on my last nerve. I got tired of hearing about Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and all those guys, Lindell White. I was tired of hearing about those dudes, so I just couldn't wait for them to win that game. And that was a great game. Top 3 national championship game I've ever seen.
I think that was a lot of it for most people, right? It was just like they were just tired of the USC, right? And this is what they say about everybody, right? You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself be the villain, right? And so USC became the villain to a lot of people. They just were kind of like not praying for their downfall, but like definitely like, okay, we're sick of this shit. Somebody just take them out so we can be done here. Because it did get kind of crazy, right? Remember there was all this debate about whether or not they could beat like NFL teams and were they the greatest like college team ever, and it was a lot. It was a lot. Like it became like a nightly thing on ESPN.
And then they had 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and it was just like I forget what the winning streak was at that time. Like I know it was over 30 games. It was something crazy, and I was like,
they've been undefeated over multiple seasons. It was
like somebody got to beat them. Really I was like, Texas gonna do it.
Like, hey, they were really good. Like, I'm not gonna deny that they were great team. They were good to look at. Like, it was really good football to look at. Fundamentally, they were very sound. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just all of the pieces were there for them to be really, really great. It just got a little overboard and fanatical at some point.
Yeah. It did, and I was so happy. I was so happy, and I still hate Pete Carroll to this day because he goes to the NFL, goes to the Seahawks, and he's in my team division. I'm a 49ers fan. He goes in my division, and then he's running the division, and it's like, yo, I can't get away from Pete Carroll, man. It's like, what is going on, man? So this is why Mom said my homeboy Scoot thought that it would be great for us to get together. So you do. For number one, you do a documentary podcast, which is cool. We do a documentary once a month on the Viewers Anonymous, so we're into documentaries as well. But you do Murder Vee Wrote, and where you are going over, cults, serial killers, all of this type of shit, and it's just like, yo, like I gotta ask this question, like, how did you get like into this? Like, where did this really start to pique your interest to where you like, yo, I'm gonna do a podcast dedicated to this?
I think where it starts for anybody. So I have a lot of the frou-frou kind of like creative interests. Like I make candles and whatever, but I find that the things that are most soothing to me are things that are very scientific and matter of fact. So I don't ever look at people like, oh, you do a murder podcast. And I don't really look at it as, I guess, the same way that people enjoy horror look at it, right? Like I'm not look at it because I just like love blood and guts. It's just something about the genre, right? Like it's not necessarily that piece that I find appealing, because when I do the show, I don't harp on how the person was murdered or, you know, if their eyeballs are hanging out of their head. Like that's not the part that's overly interesting. But I think it's more about the science part of forensic, but also the way human minds work and kind of the human nature part of it. I think that's what I find so fascinating, right? It's the why of it. Like, why would somebody think that this is okay? Like, why do people join cults? Why do people, you know, decide to murder 15 women and in a Volkswagen? Like, I just what makes a person want to do these things? Are they compelled to do it? Is there something about human nature that's an innately evil thing? And it's just it's that bit of curiosity. And it all started, I guess, from watching Forensic Files.
Forensic Files, that's hilarious. So no, it's funny you say it's so funny you say Volkswagen, because come on, you know I got to go to the Ted Bundy. That's what I know. That's why you said Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy is one of the most interesting serial killers that there are. I've watched so many documentaries. That movie that they did on him with Zac Efron.
It was very good.
That was really good. Like I started looking at Zac Efron different. Like I thought that he was just one of those. I thought he was just one of those, you know, good-looking dudes, got the face, and you know, and that's, you could tell, oh, he got an acting because of this, and it's just like, wow, like he really acted. Like I was really surprised. Like now I look at him like a serious actor now. Like I seen him in one serious role where he did pretty good. That was Parkland. I don't know if you ever seen that. That was it was a movie on Parkland's Hospital, which I'm pretty sure you heard of.
Mm-hmm.
It was about when JFK was assassinated. And what it's about, it's about the hospital part. So like they show this, they don't show it, but you know it's the assassination. So it picks up like the car going to Parkland's Hospital, and Zac Efron is one of the doctors there.
Okay.
And so like he's working on JFK, they couldn't do it. So then obviously, you know, a week later, Lee Harvey Oswald gets shot coming out the thing. And so they take him to Parkland Hospital. So those same doctors that worked on JFK a couple of days ago had to work on Lee Harvey Oswald as well. So it was a really, really good movie. Underrated. A lot of people don't know about it because it didn't like hit theaters and all that type of stuff. But so I was like, that was the second time I seen him actually do a really good job. But anyway, Ted Bundy, that dude was like, what was crazy about him was the fact of like, when you get like deep into his story and you actually start hearing like some of the things and his philosophies and him actually being a smart dude, it's like why did you go into that? You know what I mean? And it's like I can see how it's interesting because like it got me, like, you know, I go down this wormhole of like all of this different stuff about Ted, and it's just like, and then come to find out like this dude, the second time he broke out, this dude made his way all the way to Tallahassee, Florida, and then murders these girls in a sorority at Florida State University. It's like, what the hell? And then like the way he got caught because he was driving one of the girls' cars, like it was just weird. But Ted, I think out of he did what?
I said, yeah, it was just like a long saga with him. And then just the fact that he was able to escape, the way that he was kind of able to evade detection for so long. It's fascinating, right? Like, it's just like, I think it's always interesting, especially serial killers, because it's kind of a hard thing to do now. And I know that sounds stupid, but people always ask why there were so many serial killers in like the 60s and the 70s, early 80s. It's like, because you could get away with that kind of stuff. The police didn't talk to each other. There wasn't a database. And so it's just like, were these people really smart or were they really lucky? And I think in Ted's case, he was actually a bit of both. Like, I don't think he was a stupid guy. Nothing indicates that he was anything less than very intelligent and cunning. And you kind of have to be to kill that many people for so long.
Yeah. And I mean, and this dude defended himself in court. and the one thing I didn't like about that though was like once they got to the end and like when he was found guilty and like the judge was like, yo, he felt like he felt bad for like giving him life. You know what I mean? Like, he was like, oh man, what I could have done with your mind because you're such a great lawyer and all this type of shit. I'm like, yo, this dude murdered women all across the country.
Like, I
I don't
understand
want to
being
hear no sympathy.
sympathetic, but
Yeah,
maybe
it
don't
was just
say it
way
out
too
loud.
far.
Say keep the quiet part quiet.
Exactly. Like that didn't need to be said for every one of us to hear. You could have done that on your private time.
It's
So
very
and
white.
then
It was very
I mean,
white.
come on. I mean, come on. Like it wouldn't have happened the other way around. Like it was just it was amazing to me. Like the first time I seen that, I was like, what the hell? So out of and you're right. I think a lot of it had to do with luck of timing because like and I just think that trying to be a serial killer now. It's like it's too many cameras, too many camera phones, there's too many. I mean, there's
Somebody's always watching
cameras
you
in
or
them.
surveilling you, even if you
Exactly.
don't think they are. So it'd be
Yeah.
difficult to pull off. What I will say, and something that I mention a lot on Murder Vee Wrote, is that a lot of times crimes go unsolved, and sometimes there are not necessarily serial killers on a large scale, but people that are able to kill 2 or 3 people because they target marginalized communities. Right? If you target people of color, or you target women, or you target people that are sex workers, or people that are suffering some type of mental illness, or people that are underhoused, then a lot of times you can get away with those crimes because the police are less likely to solve them because no one is going to stay on them about it. There's no family or anybody who is pressing them to get these things solved. So a lot of times there's no link made, and these people's crimes go unsolved for that reason.
This is true. This is true. So when this picture enters, was it more like high school age, or was it like something when you got in college where it was like, oh, the forensic part kind of pulled me to it? Because like for me, like we spoke about this before we started recording, like I'm like deep into like horror movies and stuff. But I've been watching horror movies since like the first movie that I can remember going to see it in the movies was Candyman 2. And I was 10 years old. So it was just like I know I shouldn't have been in there, but like I just been fascinated with just like crime like in that fashion. Like I mean not real crime, but like so I was just fascinated with it. So it caught me as a kid and it's just like, I have a love for it to this day. So was this like something that piqued your interest as a kid or a teenager, or it was more like around when you was in college?
I would probably say as a kid, because even though I think like it really took off with watching Forensic Files, as an only child, like there's nobody around for you to play with. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of had that, not necessarily free reign because my parents were very strict, but I could kind of read whatever I wanted to. I could kind of watch whatever I wanted to on television. If I had questions, they would discuss them with me. There was never really an off limits per se. Like obviously not porn, but just and my mom was like real big into like crime procedurals. So I watched a lot of Law and Order as a kid. I
Mm-hmm.
watched with Dragnet, like all of those very old cop crime procedurals. And I think that's kind of what kicked it off because I was fascinated by that, even though it was acting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then my mom, who's a voracious reader, has always been into type of like crime novels. So we've always had a bookshelf full of like Anne Rule and like James Patterson and these types of writers who are more like crime writers, even though it's fictionalized. So I spent some of my earliest years just kind of reading that stuff, and it didn't gross me out or like scare me or give me nightmares. So I don't know if that's just something innate in me, but I've never been bothered by it in that way.
Yeah, same here. Like I said earlier, like I would have nightmares and I'd be like, yo, this shit is fun. Like I just get like this thrill from it. I know it's weird, I know it's strange, but that's just a part of me that that I've been living with, so I deal with it. So one other thing before we get into our main topic is like, so when did you start? Like which podcast did you actually start first, or that you was a part of first?
Chopping it up with Q. So this was back before I moved to Midland. So when I was still in Lufkin. So I don't want to make a very long, like a long story short, but
Uh-huh.
so I was going through a divorce at the time, and I just really kind of needed an outlet, I guess. And so I had started tweeting more, and me and Q started following each other. I do not remember how, but just out of the blue, just kind of tweeting back and forth, different opinions about things. And he reached out to me and he was just like, hey, I'm doing a panel about relationships. I have a podcast, would love to have you on. Would you like to be a part of this panel? And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? So I did that panel. And after that, he was like, hey, everybody really loved you, thought you were cool. You know, he was like, I have a co-host for the show, but she's super busy and I think she's going to step away. How would you feel about co-hosting the show with me? And the rest is history. So that was a few years ago. And yeah, so as everyone knows, I'm just VJ around the podcast circle. But yeah,
Hey,
that was where it all started.
Look, that's how me and Scoot started, but it was Instagram. Like we just like it was so great. Like, you know, he just started following me and I followed him back. He started listening to my podcast. I started listening to his. We started sharing messages, and then like he came on my podcast, I came on his, and then we just built this rapport. And it's like now, you know what I'm saying, we're working together with the Viewers Anonymous, which is we're going into our second year of that in January. So but yeah, it was just like we just met on Instagram somehow, and the rest is history. You know, so
I think that makes for the best type of show, right? It's very organic. Like you just kind of have a good chemistry with the person, and it doesn't feel forced. I think that works the best.
Yeah, and I know that like, and we found a way somehow to have great energy with not being in the same room, which is not. It's not as easy as some people may think it is, because like sometimes you can feed off of a person, you know, when y'all are right across or sitting beside each other, and it's just that, you know, we've only been able to do one pod in person. And when I was in Ohio, this was 2 or 3 years ago, I was in Ohio, and we had met up when we did a pod in person when he did the Already Home podcast with Gan. So it was me, him, and Gan. But like, well, we found a way to make it work, man. Like, I don't even think if people never seen the visuals, probably don't even know we ain't in the same room with each other. So
yeah, like I originally thought you guys were in the same place. So
oh yeah,
very good rapport. So you guys make it work well.
Yeah, appreciate that. So this was the original thing that we wanted to talk about. Like when we first started messaging, we was like, yo, like I am big on the Zodiac. Like I've watched, I mean, it's been a while ago, but I've watched like maybe two different documentaries on it. I seen both of the movies that came out on it. I'm more of a fan. Like the one that came out in 2007 with Jake Gyllenhaal, Mark Ruffalo, like literally, like that movie is my number one movie of all time. Of all movies that I watch, like this is the one. Like it just captivates you, like it pulls you in. I think Robert Graysmith, I never read his book, but that's what that movie's based on, is in the eyes of Robert Graysmith. And I just thought that the way that it was broken down in that, for me, I just feel like Lee Arthur Allen is the prime suspect. But I think he's the prime suspect, but I also don't think he was the only killer. Because the Zodiac was taking credit for a lot of stuff that he didn't even do. So I think that in San Francisco at that time, I think that there were people that were just like, yo, everybody's looking for the Zodiac person. I probably could get away with a crime. I could probably kill somebody and just, you know, because he's going to take the credit for it anyway. I just don't believe he did all of them. I think that he was a part of a few, but I don't think he did all of them. So what are your thoughts, or I mean, anything, like start where you want to start, but like, how do you feel about like the whole Zodiac case itself?
I think that I agree with you. They have their prime suspect. That is more than likely the person that did killing. But you're writing these letters. He's taking credit for all of these murders, and there's just not any feasible way that one person could have committed all of those murders unless you were going on like a nightly killing spree. Like there's just not a way to be responsible for all of those murders. Not one person. And I think what makes it even more interesting is I think at the time, or what you could generally say about California and that period of time, is they more than likely had anywhere from 2 to 4 active serial killers in the area. So it's really hard to attribute all of those killings to one person when it is probably, from a statistical standpoint, and more than likely that somebody else was doing something to them. And some of it were just one-offs who were copycats. Like you said, somebody was like, I could probably get away with the murder right now if I really wanted to. Let me do a little shooting at Lover's Lane. Let me, put a little target on the door. Let me do a little razzle dazzle, and I can get off with this scot free.
No, I think he did that one. The one in Vallejo, I think he did that one because he knew Darlene Farrell. And like, what was so great in the way that Robert Graysmith broke it down to David Toschi was when they were sitting down at that diner, and he was saying that how Vallejo was a very small town, and he was just like, Darlene worked at the one House of Pancakes, and then he stayed like literally a block away. And then we also knew that he went to one of her painting parties. Yeah. And it was like there was this weird guy in the corner named Lee, and he was just always weird and always awkward. And I think that he didn't like the fact that she wouldn't give him the time of day, I believe. And like, so he just took it upon himself after he followed her, killed her there. So I think that Lee was a part of that one. And I don't know about the one when the person was at the lake, which it was that one was kind of weird because it's like, why in the mid daylight you wearing this suit? Like I don't think that he was a part of that one. But
see, and that's the one that always stuck out as weird to me because, right, like most serial killers have a pattern. And so when they deviate from the pattern, something is wrong, or they're having some type of psychotic break, or it's a copycat and they have not done that actual murder. And that one sticks out like a sore thumb. Like it does not match the MO for any of the other murders. And if something's working for someone compulsively like that, they usually don't change stream to do something completely different. So it didn't make sense for him to show up in broad daylight, covered from head to toe, and be like, "Hey guys."
Yeah. Yeah. And the only thing that because when he sent, like, the only thing that had similarities was the fact that he always focused more on the girl. Because in that shooting, the girl died, the boy didn't. In that stabbing, the girl died, the boy didn't. Right. That was the only similarities in that. And then also the one when the cab driver got shot. That one didn't make sense either. But the only thing about that one is he took pieces of the shirt and he was mailing them to the San Francisco Chronicle. So that was kind of weird, and it stuck out like a sore thumb. But at the same time, it's like, yo, this guy has pieces of this guy's shirt. So it's like, is it really him? And then I don't know, like it's just so fascinating to me. And it's like every time I watch it, I mean, I'm pretty sure this goes for everybody. Like you watch something multiple times, you always seem to pick up on something different. And I think a lot of the times that happen is because when you watch it one time, you're probably focusing on one person. Then the next time you see the same scene, you might be looking at the other person and be like, oh shit, I didn't even notice this happened. And the one thing that stood out was definitely the I don't even know if you even seen that movie or not. But I'm sitting here going like scene for scene like you seen that movie, but I'm not sure. But like when they met with him and had the interview with him, like it was just creepy. It was just always something. And I know it was a character in the movie. I know it wasn't a real him, but it was just like a lot of the stuff is documented. So it's just like, you know, I feel like that movie is a really good depiction of what really happened during that time.
Yeah. So I haven't seen the movie, but I'm pretty well versed on the case. And so I really like most of what you're saying makes sense to me because I came to pretty much the same conclusions. So, I mean, it's not horror, you know, it's not that big of a deal that I haven't seen it. It makes sense.
I'm telling you, it is great if you get a chance.
I will check it out. I think the thing that was like kind of, I don't know. I guess like their whole thing with like Arthur Lee Allen is that they started taking like DNA samples from some of the postage from the letters that were mailed, and they were saying that he wasn't a contributor. But I don't know when the last time they checked was, so it is quite possible that he is actually a contributor, and maybe the DNA was not as sound as it would be now. But I don't know when the last time they tested it was. But most of the circumstantial evidence would point to him. I think the most recent thing I watched on the Zodiac was there was a documentary on Hulu where this guy was saying that he thought his dad was the Zodiac killer. And I can't remember what was the dad's name? Something Best, I think. And I can't remember what his dad's name was. And he was saying that he thought his dad was Zodiac killer, and it was very odd because I think he just wanted his dad to be the Zodiac killer. Like,
I remember that. I watched that. I wasn't with it.
Yeah, like I sat there and I was like, fuck it, I'll give it a chance. People, like I don't know how many people would just willingly offer up that their parent was a murderer. So I'm like, I'm willing to give it a chance, right? And then I'm like, okay, this man is bananas.
he was, and it seemed like he was like searching for attention, and I think that his dad's name probably came up, and he was just looking for some kind of, I don't know if he needed attention, I don't know if he got a check for this. But it was just like, okay, just because your dad was a suspect, like now you want to go and say, oh, I believe he was. And another thing that really got me was, so the first kid that was shot in Vallejo with Darlene that didn't die.
Yeah.
They met with him, if I'm not mistaken, in '92. And they met with him at an airport, and they showed him a lineup. He actually ID'd Arthur Lee Allen. So they went to get an arrest warrant for Arthur Lee Allen in 1992, but he had passed away. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a heart attack.
Right.
So they never was able to bring him in, but like he was I haven't seen everything, but as far as I know, he's the only person that was ID'd by someone. Yes, I know it was 90. So if it was 92, so we talking over 20 years. I don't think you're gonna forget that. Like if somebody shot you, I don't think you're gonna forget what they look like.
Right. And I think it's also one of those things where, granted, sometimes as people, we do have false memories, right? But I think that if you look into the face of someone who is shooting you, you kind of don't, that kind of imprints on your mind, right? Like I don't think you just look at a lineup and are like, well, it could be any of them, unless you really just didn't see. But I don't think you just pick a person out and say, yes, definitively this is them, unless you really saw them. Like that is a near-death experience. I just don't think your mind makes up a person to put there, especially if you've never seen that person before.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff checked out, man. When it came to the military boots, he wore a 10.5. The books that was missing from a library, like, they were stolen, but they knew that he frequently went to that library. Like there was just so many things that pointed to Arthur Lee Allen. It's just like, yeah, I do know there's a such thing as, that I just don't think there's that much coincidence could go by to where it's like, yo, like there's actually something here. And then the one friend that was in jail, and she was like, she said that Lee used to come to her painting party. So it was just like there was just too many coincidences that went down. I know a lot of people look at Robert Graysmith as a guy who was just obsessed. He lost his job and then he just wrote this book. But that book, the book obviously did well. They just did a whole movie on it, and they was able to get, actors like, Robert Downey Jr. to come in it. So I just, how do you feel about this new stuff that was just founded 2 weeks ago? I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So I guess for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there was an article that came out and they said that they had found out who the Zodiac killer was, because keep in mind at this point, the case was still like open, because we're saying, that the circumstantial case that was built should have been good enough, but the person was dead. They're saying, oh no, wait, we solved one of the ciphers and his name is in the cipher and we think it's this person. So yeah, what is this man's name? Gary Francis Post is who they're saying that they think the Zodiac killer is. So basically, like, because I'm trying to think of how to put this. So basically, they had a bunch of independent people, like ex-law enforcement, military personnel. Basically, they were calling themselves like the code breakers or case breakers or some shit like that. And basically, they just did their own investigation and were like, yeah, so we're gonna say, or they identified through whatever they did, and they say that it's Gary Francis Post. And so they're trying to petition the Vallejo Police Department to do a DNA test against this person to see if he's actually Zodiac killer. The Vallejo Police are like, nah. they just flat out were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where did you get this from? No, thank you. Y'all have a blessed day. And just kind of like shooed them out of the door and like locked it behind them, like, oh, glad that's over.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Vallejo Police Department has been very adamant in the fact that the case is not solved. They do not know what the fuck these people are talking about after they got everybody in a frenzy because they solved the cipher. But the thing about ciphers that are alphabetical is once you have broken the code, I can see anything in there. If I looked at the Zodiac ciphers hard enough, I could probably find my fucking name. So like, I'm sure if I sat there long enough, I could pull Vermeek out of there somewhere, or VJ or Burton or something that I could be like, oh yeah, that's me. So I mean, depending on what you're looking at and how you're looking at it, like he's saying, my name is in the cipher. I'm sure there are a lot of people's names in the cipher. That's that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that could glean their name from the cipher. So it's just weird. It's very weird. But I think a lot of the pieces fit because, I mean, again, like you're sending ciphers to people that denote some type of military intelligence or some kind of background in that type of thing, because the average person is not going to create a cipher to be like, this is how you'll know who I am.
Yeah.
Because most serial killers are intelligent, but they're of average intelligence. Look at BTK. He sent the police a fucking floppy disk.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah, he sent people a floppy disk. It was like, don't lie to me. Can you trace me from this floppy disk? And they were like, no, send it right over. It's fine.
Yeah, that was, oh my God. Like, I had watched that. Was that Netflix? I think, yeah, that was Netflix that just put that one out. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, he really did that? Like, he really said,
and was like, can I send you a floppy disk with some stuff on it to prove I'm BTK? And they were like, yeah, send it. He said,
yo. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. That was wild.
You wanted to go to jail.
Were you
tired? He was tired of being at home with his wife.
That's what it was. Like, he was like, yo, I'm tired of living this simple life, man. I need some more excitement, man. Because it was crazy because he had a kid and like he just stopped killing like all of a sudden. And it's just like, okay, now you got morals.
No, I think they have less time to kill. Typically, that's what it is. When serial killers stop killing, something in their life has stabilized to where they don't have the ability to go out and do the things they were doing, right? So before he was able to sneak in and out of people's houses during the day, he had access because he worked at like ADT, I think. And so he was installing security systems. So he had the means and the time to be in these places or break into someone's house and sit there for 6 hours and wait for them to get home. When you have 2 kids and a wife and a mortgage, you don't have the time to sit in someone's house for 6.5 hours to jump out of the closet and be like, I got you. Like, you can't. Like, you don't have the time for that, right? Like, you have to go home and be a family man. Like, you don't have time to like be sneaking up on people and committing murders. Like, I mean, you do, but not the way he liked to do them. Like,
yeah, that is too funny, yo. Oh my God.
But you would look real crazy, crouched in the bushes behind somebody's house trying to pick the lock gate with your like infant in the carrier strapped to the front because it's your day to babysit while your wife gets a pedicure. Like, you just, at some point, you have to quit. You got to start doing other things.
Yo, that is hilarious, man. Listen though, I'm gonna put it like this, because I don't want everybody to get everything. I'm gonna end it here because you actually got another podcast to do. But this is, I mean, well, it won't be that much of a preview, but like as y'all can hear, she's very intelligent in this stuff. You have a lot of, I mean, great thoughts, and just the information you have just off the head is great. And so I would suggest anybody to please go check out Murder Vee Wrote. It's a great podcast, very scripted. I can't do any of that type stuff. So that's why I could not join that podcast.
No,
You
we're gonna
do.
get you on, but we're not gonna do as scripted. We're gonna just talk. We're gonna.
Okay, I mean, I could do that. I could do
I
that.
think I've decided. I think we're gonna figure out a time to have you on. We're going to pick something that you would like to talk about that's not Zodiac, and I'm gonna regale you with the tale, and then you just get to talk about it however you would like. I'm just gonna put out the base for you.
Oh yeah. I'm all about winging it, yo. I wish I could have changed the name of this podcast to Spur of the Moment, but somebody already had it, so I was just like, nah, I ain't gonna jack it. I ain't gonna jack it because of this podcast is a lot of the time Spur of the Moment, and it'd be like an idea pop up in my head, and I come home and do a podcast.
And that works.
Yeah. I've been doing this podcast three and a half years. So yeah, definitely that's a system I got, and that's the way I put it out. So also please go check that All Docked Up. And so VJ, before you go, can you tell everybody where to find you?
Where can they find me? On Twitter and Instagram, it's at VJ_Burton. If you would like to just find me, the person, that will get you to all of the other things usually. But if you want to follow any of the shows on Twitter, Instagram, it's All Docked Up Pod. At Choppin It up_pod. And then Murder Vee Wrote, Murder Vee Wrote all together. But that is the same across Instagram and Twitter. So reach out, talk to me. I like talking to people. If you have any show suggestions, I like doing interesting things. Like I'm thinking about maybe doing an MLM and taking a week break from murder. No one's gonna get murdered. I'm just gonna talk about like a scam. So yeah, so anything that people want to hear about or would like to talk about, I am open to suggestions, and I am open to having people on the show to talk about their favorite, I guess, murder, favorite MLM, favorite serial killer, whatever piques your interest.
That is what's up, man. Like it was so funny because I believe I had showed it to Penrose, I believe, because I had Foxcatcher on my docket. It was just like I was just trying to figure out when the time I was gonna do it, and then the next thing I see y'all start promoting Foxcatcher. I was like, yo, do you see this shit? I was like, I was gonna do Foxcatcher, man, because that damn DuPont family, man, that shit is wild.
And you still should. I think there's just so many things to look at and so many different moving pieces. What you think is pertinent when you're discussing it is something completely different than we are, because you know how we are over there is jokes.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of jokes and a lot of laughs.
It's over there. So.
Yes, definitely. It definitely is. But y'all have a good time, man. Y'all got a good setup, man. You, Penrose, and Chris. So shout out to all of those people, and I will put those in the descriptions as well. And but it was fun having you, man. This was a podcast that's been long delayed. We've been trying to get it in. We finally got it in today. So I truly appreciate you coming on. I love having people on that podcast. You know what I'm saying? Because like it's different. It's nothing against people who don't. It's just a different vibe. You know what I mean? So I just think that, you know, when some people can get on and freeze and stutter or, you know, whatever, and it's just different when when you're podcasting with another podcaster. So I definitely appreciate you being on with me.
Thank you for having me. This was a good time. And I think you're right about the podcasting, which when I do Murder Vee Wrote, I have to write out a lot of notes so that I can get the specifics, and I have to edit out myself saying a lot because it's not me thinking just off the head. And when I'm thinking, it's fine, it just flows. But when I'm doing that podcast, I have to edit it a lot.
Nah, understandable.
I'm not yelling every other sentence.
It happened because you trying to fill that time. See, and that's the thing. Like it's really tricky. It's tricky because like you hear that silence and you think that it's dead air and you feel that you have to say something, and it just comes out. I know exactly what you're talking about. It gets me sometimes, especially when I do solo pods. Especially when I do polo pods, I do that. So everybody, y'all can check me at s.foster8. That's on Instagram and Twitter. At 28 minutes or less pod on Instagram. Like, subscribe, all that type stuff. Rate for 28 minutes or less. It's on all major platforms. I actually will have the visuals for this as well. So that'll be on the Stolen Time Podcast Network. So you can check that out when it's available. V, I truly appreciate you coming on with me. And hopefully we'll be able to do it again at some point.
I look forward to it, hopefully.
No problem. No problem. Everybody, thank you for listening. This was episode 62 of the 28 Minutes or Less podcast. And I'm out.
Later.